As you can tell from the title of this video, I'm going to be discussing briefly about Kendrick Lamar's new album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Um, I asked a few people before listening to this, I was like, what do you think of this album? Like, what do you really think of this album from top to bottom? How good is it? I had a couple people say that, dude, this is the best album of the year so far, and it's gonna win album of the year, and this is just so good. And I had other people who were like, okay, it's all right, it's not great, and the hype around it was really overhyped, like really badly overhyped. Um, in my opinion, that's what I'm siding with. I think this album was extremely overhyped, and it just wasn't all that. Kendrick didn't really pull through with this album, in my opinion. Um, there's a few good songs. Out of the 18 songs, I added 7 of them to my playlist. Um, and that's not that great. Like, this is a mid album for me, and I would probably give it a 5 or 6 out of 10, maybe 6.5. But I'm going to give it more on that upper side because the songs that I did add, I do really like, especially Count Me Out. That song is just really good for me. I've been listening to it all day, if I'm going to be straight up. But this album didn't really come through that well for being so hyped up, and especially for it being the first time Kendrick Lamar has dropped since 2018, 2017, like an album. So 4 years about since he's dropped an album, and it just wasn't that great. The features on it aren't very good. Some of the songs on it are just not very good. But it just kind of depends what type of music you're into. But this is just my opinion. I really don't think this album that's great, and the features were not good. That's just my opinion. Um, and the worst song, in my opinion, is "We Cry Together." That song is not good at all. The argument, kind of representing a toxic relationship, just wasn't for me at all. But let me know what you guys think about this album. I'd actually really like to know because I've seen two sides of it's great or it's all right. I don't think it's garbage because you know it's not like every song sucked, but there were some really bad songs in this album. But there were some really good ones too. So that's why I give it about a 6 or 6.5. So let me know what you guys think about this album. Like I said, this album, the reason why it I feel like it didn't perform as well, in my opinion, like to my standards, is because it had so much hype. Like I said, it had a lot of hype built around it. And I feel like that's part of the reason why I didn't like it that much because I was like, okay, Kendrick's dropping. We're going to get a really, really good album. He's had a few years. I don't know what he's been doing in those few times. Maybe he's been going through something or something. I was like, okay, you know, this album is going to be really good, and it just didn't perform well for me. And it's not just the features either; it's Kendrick too. It's just some of these songs he didn't. I feel like he could have chose better songs for this album, but honestly, from a music standpoint, like when I say that, I mean like just listening to it, not knowing the background of the album, nothing like that. This album isn't that great, right? It's okay in my opinion, but from a story standpoint, this album told a pretty good story of like those two sides, a little bit like We Cry Together, that argument thing. It wasn't a good song, but it definitely told the story of like, maybe something Kendrick was going through. So, I mean, that was a plus to the story, but the story wasn't told, in my opinion, in a good way with the music. Like, I feel like he could have done this a different way. But the story really did get a message in some of these songs. But the music just wasn't too great for me. I can compare this, there's albums that are trying to tell a story, and most of them don't perform don't perform well if it's a posthumous album, as in after an artist has died, that's usually when like the story of an album doesn't really make that much sense because you don't know what the artist really was trying to tell you because they're not the one who dropped the music. But Kendrick did tell this story extremely well, but the music was the problem. It just I didn't enjoy it too much. So definitely let me know what you guys think of this.